gosh. Hey everyone, my name is Aubrey and I'm an opera singer and voice coach. Today we're going to dive into the more unsavory side of YouTube and discuss classically Abby. Let me just start this video by saying I am neither a political nor religious channel, I'm just a music channel, so let me have this piece of the pie, please. Even though I vehemently disagree with Abby on many topics, I still want to give constructive and helpful criticism to her because her voice needs a little bit of a pick-me-up. I did actually find a video from a few years ago, perhaps it was during her undergrad or something of the sort, where she's on stage and singing quite well. There's a lot of good things happening, and it just has not translated in this video that I'm going to show you today. I was sent this video. I don't really know that much about it. I took a couple notes on my first run through, but this will be largely my commentary. So hopefully it'll be something of use for Abby if she happens to find this video. Hello, Abby. Otherwise, let's get into it. The first thing that I see with this particular video is the title. It's Opera Singer Sings Phantom of the Opera. Y'all, it's a musical, not an opera. Laughing face emoji. A lot of people can probably back me up here when I say that people will want to work with someone that they know is polite and kind versus somebody who has a reputation for having a big ego or being a rather difficult component of a performance. And it's not to say that you're a good or bad singer. That actually goes out the window if you're a bit of a jerk. So when I read this title, it came across as rather brash and arrogant, which isn't a good start for opera singers. I know that we have a stereotype of being divas, but that does not translate well when you're collaborating with people. So reading this, I was already kind of unwilling to click on it because it was rude. Number two, it's very patronizing. Most people, I would say, in the industry, and even plenty of people outside the industry, understand that Phantom of the Opera is not an opera. And, you know, if people don't know, that's not a very nice way to teach them. So you're already starting off in a very strange position, Miss Abby. Let's get with it. Okay. So number one, the biggest problem that I'm noticing is just the general placement is too dark. Wow, it's very deep in her throat. Think of me fondly. And it's almost like she's always singing like this. And although that's a common way to get that kind of opera color, it's not actually how opera singers should be singing. It's extremely exhausting. And it's just not a very pleasant sound to the audience. It often feels very good to the singer to sing with a heavy level of coverage, which is that, oh, kind of sound. But it doesn't actually usually translate very well to people listening because it's not very clear. It also comes across as a little bit of a muddied sound when you're trying to speak. So although she's singing on pitch, it kind of sounds a little bit strained and a little bit forced and ultimately really unnatural, which I don't like as a color. I think it would help her to let it get out of that covered spot a little bit more. It's all right to brighten up a little bit. It might feel hugely raw and unprotected to you, but that's the goal, right? You want to be able to provide a good experience for the audience above all else. Number two, there's a lot of jumpiness. It kind of comes across as a little bit like a kangaroo. Think of me fondly. It kind of just feels like an afterthought, like, oh no, I've got to go up there. So I would try and say lift a little bit more delicately and have a better plan for where you're going in terms of making those jumps. You don't want it to be like a huge difference between those chunks of the voice, right? If you're sitting in a very rich, lovely area and then all of a sudden you have a spot that's slightly higher and perhaps naturally will lose some of that dark color that you like, you have to figure out a way to mitigate that change. You have to find a middle ground between the two and use that as a smooth ramp to transition, not just going for both of them and hoping for the best, because it's just going to come across unprepared. Right here, this is just a side thing. She's not looking at the camera, so it kind of feels a little bit uncomfortable. Although there's plenty of examples where people will not be looking at the audience and they'll be reading music and such. I feel like if you have the time to prepare a video, you should be acting the entire way at us, not at the camera, because she's getting all these really intense emotions, but not looking at us, and it's kind of unnerving. So that's just a personal thing. If you're going to perform, either perform memorized with a very clear plan as to what your emotional integrity is, or just sing off sheet music. It's totally fine. Ooh. All right, let's talk about that. This is extremely forced. Girl, what are you doing? That's super hard. And we're just gonna go back and listen to that for a second. Okay, so part of the problem is that her vowel on evergreen is too E. It's just really, really intense and way too bright, and she's not actually allowing it to make any kind of sense. This is the same conversation that we're talking about the jumpiness, right? That jumpiness is happening here, but with her vowel shape. That E is just very, very harsh. It's not as smooth as everything else that's happening. And then when she's lifting up there, it's just kind of not changing space. It's going, evergreen, and it's just kind of coming across as too shrill. And a way to kind of lift that is think about it from a point of height. Don't feel like you're coming at it from below. Give a little bit of lift in the upper palate, this soft palate right here. Also, what will help is to take a better breath. It almost sounds like she's running out of breath or something. It sounds forced and desperate. You want to kind of dial that back and understand that those high notes are probably well within your range. Don't freak out. Just give yourself better space, better breath, and go for it. If something happens that's not intentional, sometimes that happens in live performance. It's the nature of the beast. It's how you recover from a mistake that makes you a good or a great musician. So there's some pretty colors that are happening, but again, it's just this darkness. This darkness is obscuring everything else and really affecting her vowel quality in an unnatural way. It's just not how people would speak, right? So, for example, she really hits the U's, you, and also we, and these dark and very manipulated vowels are just distracting me from the pretty colors that she's able to get. They also kind of force her to make specific colors that maybe she wouldn't otherwise. So for example, when you're getting into the lower chunks of her voice, you can kind of hear this audible distinguishing color between that middle range and the lower range. And that low range kind of gets super forward in her voice. And although it's a nice color, it doesn't actually blend very smoothly with the other parts of her register. So it kind of just comes out of nowhere. It looks like she's not taking very effective breaths. It's very short. And I know that you're supposed to have those spots for breathing, but there's a way to do it where it's more subtle and it makes it look like it's natural. Think of me fondly. It doesn't have to be broken up. You know, just because there is a rest there or a lift or whatever doesn't mean it has to be absolutely cut short and really intensely clean. There's a level of caring and emoting that's happening here that will dictate how you present yourself. Another thing that's happening is the I kind of vowel is getting really wide. So wishing, think of me, and it's just very, very flat sounding. Not in pitch per se, but just flat in terms of its momentum. So I would think, instead of think, I would think more of a schwa. Think of me, think of me, think of me fondly. It's a little bit more relaxed in the jaw because she's just having so much involvement of her lips and her jaw, and there's a lot of chewing of the words, and it's just not sounding very pretty. We're seeing a lot of different color, which isn't a bad thing, but they're not communicating with each other, so it sounds like you're just hearing different voices all at the same time in this one piece. I want to see more control and more intention behind all of the choices she's making, instead of looking like she has to do it because it's the only way she can sing. You have a nice voice, so let's hear it. The other thing is when she's going to that high note, she comes down and hits the U really, really hard again. You! It's just so dark. lighten it up a little bit. You don't have to be really, really pure on your vowels. It is in English, and English has a habit of having a lot of diphthongs and other kinds of middle-of-the-road vowels. Sing what feels most natural to you. I always try and have a little bit more space with ooh sounds because they can get a little bit dark. Ooh, ooh. Because you can get a very pointed sound and that feels really good to sing, but it does not sound good. Does not sound good. It is too dark. But that's okay. Lift it up just a little bit for your next time that you sing, and you'll notice a lot less exhaustion too, because you're not going to be giving yourself whiplash. Okay. I was kind of expecting that too. So right there, she didn't really have a lot of control over her pitches, and that's a problem. If you're gonna be doing something like this, like a cadenza, it's gotta be really, really good. It's gotta be really accurate because the rest of the orchestra drops out. It's on you, girl. You're holding it all up. Be confident, know your pitches, also know what you're trying to express at the same time. That will help. Have the narrative really involved right there, and you'll be able to express, and that will carry some of the weight for you. You don't have to put all of it on the voice. And what I mean by that is imagining really, really seriously that you are this character and experiencing the emotion that they are having in this moment, letting yourself be carried away by the music. Okay, that's just a huge mouth. Why? It doesn't have to be that big. Also, I don't know, I don't have the sheet music in front of me. I don't know if you're supposed to be skipping a bunch of notes in that run or if it's supposed to be a true run up, like, or it's like she did. I can't be sure, so maybe I'm just being picky, but if you've got a run, make sure that it's clean. Make sure that you can hear it. Make sure that you engage enough with the core so that every note is actually chosen to be sung, not just happening as an accident. And then at the end of the day, she just dropped that jaw. No, you don't want to be doing that because that's a lot of tension and it's just, it just sounds so strange. I feel uncomfortable on her behalf. I do, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but there's a lot of tension in that jaw. I want to have a little bit more relaxation. It shouldn't be super uncomfortable. We don't look for this. It just comes across sounding uncomfortable. Again, very dark. Also, when you're singing with emotion, I don't want the emotion to affect the quality of the sound. You have to learn how to look like you're crying when you're not. I don't like that she's letting her breath kind of collapse on things and she's letting this like choking, sobbing sound happen because that's not effective. Have the emotions present in your face, have the voice do all the other heavy lifting. Together, it's a seamless, beautiful, emotional experience. But right now, it's kind of coming across as middle school play rather than Phantom of the Opera. So we've got another interlude. Another example where she could be looking at the camera, but isn't. So a lot of the same problem, it's just a lot of this. She's got a nice lower range. I just want it to make more sense. And that's the biggest problem that I'm seeing with this, is just this is so distracting. It's just not attractive, and it's not opera singing. It's not. You can try and add the color, but it's not the same thing as just having a good understanding of your instrument. And doing this does not an opera singer make. These wide-eyed fears, I'm here, nothing can harm you. So why try and sing this song so beautifully and then have this man come in, right? This male role come in, and it just doesn't sound nice. It doesn't sound nice. It sounds almost like a joke, a satirical version of this character singing this piece. Maybe that's how she intended, and maybe that's how it's supposed to be in the Phantom of the Opera. However, that's not how I remember it, and if you're gonna sing, sing, but don't cut off things and don't sound like a totally different character in terms of the quality of your singing, because it kind of comes across as like the comedic relief, and this song isn't really funny. And now she's trying to be emotive. You know what's interesting is it almost sounds like she can't even let the fake character that she is playing show her up. And that's just a strange thing, but that's like the vibe I'm getting. Like, it's only her soprano that needs to be good. Everything else needs to be lesser compared to her. It's like, well, they're all you though. So wouldn't you want to give the best performance across the board? Or maybe that's just me being unreasonable. I don't know. So that's a little pitchy. That was slightly flat. And also, again, lots of air escaping here. It's just not an effective sound. Yeah, a little bit flat. I just want a different color there. So, One Lifetime felt better to me. I like that color better than what she was singing previously. I want her to have a little bit more natural position in her jaw and a little bit of a more natural shape in the vowel. It needs to be a little bit lifted in the back of the palate, like I said. Little bit of the tongue depression, little bit of a lift in the soft palate, giving you that Julia Child kind of voice. Okay, she could have started that better because the vowel she used was not effective for her. And again, this is a bit of a conversation that I could have with everyone, and myself included. You have to find the right vowels for you. There is no magic vowel that works for everyone. It has to be the vowel that feels most natural, and is a hard vowel to sing on. I would definitely have a lot of lift if I really wanted to make that as pure of a sound as I possibly could. But otherwise, I would probably just say nah, because it'll still translate to any, right? I don't need to actually have to make it work. I can say and you still understand what I'm saying to you. So when going on and facing high notes, please adjust the vowel as much as you need. After you get above the staff, there's no rules. Do what you gotta do. Just a lot of ooh. Oh gosh. Okay, wow. So she was just hitting that hard. It's just, wah, wah. It's just, wow. A little bit more delicate, please. And I would put a slight shadow H in the beginning. And that's even too much. Just, to be extremely because it just sounds like she's throwing herself into a pool or something. When she's singing it this way, it just sounds kind of choked and intense, like she's gripping it and trying to make it happen. Let's try and loosen that up a little bit and just have a little bit more lightness. Where in the world have you been hiding? It's closing a lot on the certain vowels. Where in the world have you been hiding is a problem. So it's creating this it's just caught every time. So what we want to try and do is just been hiding. You want to just make that N as light as possible. Throw it out the window. It's there, you can hear it, but it's the last thought in that little sentence. Make it softer. Don't make it harder for yourself. It's hard as it is. Singing well is hard. You know, do not make things harder than it already is. Ooh, gosh, that's a heavy E. It just sounds like we. I've been wishing. Open it to an ah almost. Get that schwa in there. Get that schwa in there. So it just sounds like she's trying to sound like this little girl, and that's a vibe. But you have to do it and still sound pretty. It sounds extremely pointed and nasal and like a pterodactyl. We're trying to go for something a little bit lighter, a little bit more lifted. It's gotta be fun and bouncy, but right now it just sounds forced and painful. Like, wish I knew your secret. Wish I knew your secret. Secret, like a wave. You don't want it to be secret. Wish I knew your secret. Try and speak it out as you're going through each line so that you have a better understanding of the placement of the vowels in your mouth, so it's not just reacting exclusively to the pitch requirements. Same kind of thing. I want a little bit lighter. It sounds like she's starting to get tired too. It just sounds like she's exhausting herself in this range. It is probably her passaggio, which is called the passageway, which is a very uncomfortable point of the voice to be singing at in general. So in order to try and mitigate that stress that you're going to be putting your voice under, you want to sing at it from above. Right now, it seems like she's really pushing at it from below and trying to make it happen in a very, very musical theater-esque sound. But the problem is it's not coming across as musical theater. It's coming across as uncomfortable. So you want to kind of lift it slightly, have a little bit of a lighter tone, and again, think about that Julia Child space. Let that space do the work. And when you're doing those bounces, you don't want it to be landing really heavily on that lower version. You want to have a little bit lighter down there so it's easier for you to transition back into that higher part of the voice. If you're constantly shifting between those two voice types and not coming up with something in the middle, it's going to exhaust you. Pretty heavy K, but you know, I mean, that might be if she was ever a really heavy theater person or a choral person. I guess I can forgive that, but a little bit harsh. I'm just hoping it's theatrical effect. I'll forgive that little voice crack because maybe it just is the way it is. Sometimes things happen. It's just very dark. I want to hear more. It looks like it hurts. Yeah, that just looks like it hurts. There's a point where opening is normal when you get up higher, but it just literally looks like she's in pain to create that sound, and that's not ideal. I also want a little bit more delineation between the trilling notes, or like those really quick little 16, I'm assuming they're 16th notes. So you want to have a little bit more clarity. And when you get up to that high note, you can have that open space, but you also want to make sure that it's got a nice round covered color without it sounding like it's shrill And also, the eyes are a little scary. You don't want to be like, it's just a little bit stressful for the watchers, at least for me. So I would try and relax the jaw. It's going to be a hard note to sing. So when you get up there, it doesn't have to be a massive sound. It doesn't also have to be a massive space. You can make it a little bit more comfortable. Find whatever is natural to you. You can make it however you want. Just make sure that the note is coming out and it doesn't look like it hurts. You don't want to look like you're in pain whenever you're singing. That's kind of a problem. Okay, so this was a rather rough go, and I know I was probably getting a little heated every once in a while. I assume that she can take the criticism. I also want to make sure that she gets everything that she needs. It's interesting because the difference between that video I had mentioned that I had seen earlier and this one is massive. I want to see her sing better. I think she has a lot of good things going for her, obviously. However, the biggest thing that she has to work on is a consistency of color. The tone is just off a lot of the time, and she just cannot seem to agree on a placement for any of her vowels. They all have their own placement, and it's just irritating. I want more consistency, and I don't want all of her vowels to have a completely different sound. You don't want it to sound like You want to have a little bit more consistency, a natural space, and filling everything in there. So you're not activating the jaw so much. Girl, I got vocally tired just watching this video. It's amazing. I'm surprised that she made it through the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if she probably had to film it at different points in the day or even different days, because to sing with that kind of technique for this video is about 10 minutes. I don't know if I could do that. It's just a lot of variation, honestly. There's just a lot of inconsistency. And the biggest thing that I will say to all of my students is when transitioning to different parts of your voice, it kind of is like driving stick shift. So you have a sweet spot where shifting is the best. You don't want to be shifting out of the gears. You don't want to be doing any weird stuff, and you want to be paying attention to when you need to be starting transition. It's a whole process, and they all go hand in hand, and she doesn't seem to listen to her body's demands for different amounts of air and different shapes in an organic way. She's trying to make things happen because they feel best or they sound best to her, and then totally ignoring what the audience experience is. So my biggest piece of advice for her is to make a little bit more of a consistent tone happen, making sure that her oohs and e's aren't so pointed. At least with me, I think her ahs sound quite nice. She would just put her oohs, a's, and e's into her ah placement. I think I would be a lot happier with her presentation as a whole. But right now, as it stands, there's just so much pulling and grabbing and forcing and pushing, and it just feels like she's trying really hard, and it's not an effortless performance. And if you're an opera singer, I would like to see it look effortless. Largely, you know, she's got a nice instrument. It's just too bad that she doesn't let it really blossom like it should. I think there's some colors there that are really, really nice. And, you know, I think she's got a good stage presence. She's inherently very theatrical. But as it stands, the technique needs work. And I'm here to help. This is my discussion about opera singer sings Phantom of the Opera. Y'all, it's a musical, not an opera. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, comment, share, ring my bell. Oh my God, don't say that. Either way, I have 30 subscribers. I would love to have new friends. And if you're interested in taking lessons, I'm your opera singer. Until next time, goodbye.